The most confident person in the room is usually the one who has thought about it the least. And you've felt this. Someone speaks with total certainty, and the whole room bends toward them, while the person who actually understands the subject hesitates, qualifies, says it depends. We've been trained to reward the wrong signal. It costs us arguments, careers, relationships, entire beliefs about who we are. But this isn't just a bias, it's a defense. Certainty is what the mind builds when it can't afford to look at itself. So in this video, 3 reasons confidence and accuracy move in opposite directions, and one question at the end most people quietly skip. Not because it's hard, because it's about them. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler walked into 2 Pittsburgh banks in broad daylight, no mask, and robbed them both. Cameras caught his face clearly. Police arrested him that night. He was stunned. He had covered his face in lemon juice. Lemon juice is used as invisible ink, so he had reasoned that it would make his face invisible to cameras. He had even tested it with a Polaroid. He wasn't lying. He wasn't joking. He was certain. 2 Cornell psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, read about the case and asked a question that has quietly haunted psychology ever since. What if incompetence and confidence aren't opposites? What if the same missing knowledge that makes you wrong is the exact knowledge you'd need to notice you're wrong? Their 1999 research found something people still misread. The problem isn't that unskilled people are arrogant. It's that skill and self-assessment come from the same source. Lose one, and you lose both. But here's where most explanations stop, and where this one starts. Because if this were only about ignorance, education would fix it. It doesn't. Some of the most confident wrong people you know are extremely well-informed. They read, they cite, they argue well, and they are still, somehow, unreachable. So the question changes. It stops being what don't they know and becomes, what are they protecting? Think about the last time you were completely sure about something and turned out to be wrong. Not a small thing, a real one. About a person, or yourself. Now try to remember what the certainty felt like from the inside. It didn't feel like arrogance. That's the part nobody tells you. From the inside, certainty feels like clarity. It feels calm. It feels like the noise finally stopped and you could finally see. That calm is the tell. Because there's a version of doubt that hurts, and you know it well. It arrives at 2 in the morning. It asks whether you chose the right life, whether the person you married actually knows you, whether the thing you've built means anything. It leaves you awake with your jaw tight, staring at nothing. Certainty ends that, instantly. So you reach for it. Not consciously. You just notice yourself becoming very sure of something, very quickly, right at the moment you were about to feel something unbearable. You've watched someone do this. A friend, mid-divorce, explaining with perfect logic why it was entirely the other person's fault. Every fact accurate, every conclusion airtight. And you sat there knowing that if he ever loosened his grip on that certainty, even for a second, he would drown. He wasn't being dishonest. He was surviving. And that is the uncomfortable part. What if your strongest opinions aren't your best thinking, but your best defended wounds? Carl Jung had a name for what happens next. He called it inflation. When you identify completely with a position, an image, a role, the ego swells to fill it. You stop having an opinion and start being one. The idea and the self become the same object, so an attack on the idea registers in the body as an attack on you. This is why arguing with certainty never works. You think you're correcting information. They're experiencing a threat to their existence. Jung noticed something else, and this is the part that should make all of us uneasy. The traits we're most certain we don't have are the ones we're most likely carrying. He called this the shadow, and its favorite disguise is confidence. The man most certain he isn't controlling. The woman most certain she isn't jealous. Certainty pointed at yourself is where the shadow hides best, because you've already checked, and you were sure. 24 centuries earlier, Socrates ran into the same wall from the other direction. According to Plato's account in the Apology, a friend of his went to the oracle at Delphi and was told that no one in Athens was wiser than Socrates. Socrates found this absurd. He knew he wasn't wise, so he went looking for someone wiser to disprove it. He went to the politicians, the poets, the craftsmen, the most respected minds in the city, and he found the same thing everywhere. They knew real things, genuinely, but each one believed his expertise in one domain made him an authority in every domain. The craftsman knew his craft, so he was sure he understood justice, the gods, the good life. Socrates concluded that he was wiser only in this narrow sense. He didn't think he knew what he didn't know. This is the origin of aporia, the Greek word for the state of productive confusion, not ignorance, not despair, the specific, disorienting moment when a belief you were resting on comes apart in your hands, and you're standing in the gap with nothing to hold. The Athenians found this so intolerable that they killed him for it. That's worth sitting with. They didn't kill him for teaching a doctrine. He didn't have one. They killed him for taking certainty away and offering nothing in its place. In modern language, Socrates was doing something we now know is neurologically expensive. Holding a belief loosely, staying in the unresolved space, costs the brain real energy. Collapsing into an answer is cheap. Your mind is not built to be right. It's built to be finished. And that changes what confidence actually is. Not a measure of how much you know, a measure of how quickly you needed to stop not knowing. So here's the shift. Stop treating your certainty as a conclusion and start treating it as data about yourself. The next time you feel that clean, calm, absolutely sure feeling rise up, don't ask whether you're right. Ask what would happen to you if you weren't. That single question does something the argument never could. It moves the spotlight off the belief and onto what the belief is holding up. Sometimes the answer is nothing. You're just right. That happens. But sometimes you'll find that underneath the position is a version of yourself you can't afford to lose. The competent one. The one who was never at fault. The one who saw it coming. And you'll realize you weren't defending a fact. You were defending an identity that would have to be rebuilt. Real confidence looks different from the outside. It's quieter. It can say I don't know without flinching. Because its foundation isn't the answer, it's the willingness to keep looking. I want to be honest about how this actually goes, because self-help versions of this idea always lie about the timeline. When I started catching my own certainty, I assumed it would make me humbler and calmer. It made me slower. Conversations got harder. I lost arguments I used to win, because I could no longer pretend the gap in my reasoning wasn't there. There is a real social cost to being the person who says I'm not sure yet in a room full of people who are performing sureness. And there's a private cost. Some certainties were load-bearing, letting go of a story about my childhood, about why a friendship ended, about who was at fault, meant sitting with the possibility that I'd been the difficult one, for years, without knowing it. That's not a breakthrough. It's just true. And it stays true. What changes is smaller than people promise. You start noticing the exact moment your mind reaches for the answer, and you get maybe 2 seconds of choice you didn't have before. That's all. 2 seconds. But almost everything you regret saying happened inside those 2 seconds. So here's the question I said would be waiting at the end. Not what are you wrong about? You can't answer that. If you could, you'd already be right. The question is this. What would you have to stop being if this thing you're most sure about turned out to be false? Whatever came to mind just now, that's not a belief you hold. That's a belief that holds you. Socrates spent his life asking people what they were certain of, and the record suggests he never once told them what to think instead. He just stood in the gap with them and waited. Most people leave that gap as fast as they can. You don't have to.